All right, so topic number two. If you haven't seen topic number one, it is linked right up there. Today in our discussion, we have a Democrat in California. His name is David. We have a Libertarian out in California. Her name is Angela. And we also have a Green Party representative in the great state of Ohio. His name is Austin. We're now talking about California. The governor was recently seen out having dinner without a mask on with a group of individuals. We're also seeing now that the LA Sheriff's Department is defying the governor's orders. Austin, what make you of all of this information?
Obviously, I don't live in California, so I don't have any firsthand experiences. I'm from Ohio, but it's quite annoying, to be honest. We've had this situation in Ohio too, where our governor is mandating mask orders, um, but also not following them himself. Um, it just goes to show the two-front approach of liberal politicians and all politicians in the United States, um, where rules don't apply to them, even though they're making the rules, which is kind of annoying. I lived in South Korea for some time, almost 3 years. And my hometown in South Korea is named Cheonan. 1 month ago, Cheonan was punching around nearly 100 coronavirus cases in a day. Now they're at one. One. This city is larger than Seoul, not population-wise. Um, and the reason how they got those cases down were adequate testing, um, tracking and tracing coronavirus cases, um, stay-at-home orders, closing all the bars, restaurants, arcades, karaoke rooms have been forcibly closed. Restaurants, diners, and other restaurants were delivery only, and people took initiative to stay home and bring those cases down. In over 5 weeks, we have seen coronavirus almost eliminated in a city of almost 800,000 people in South Korea. Um, Also mandatory mask laws, but in Korea, they do have um, availability for those types of things, whereas the United States has seen absolutely no prerequisite to provide adequate PPE for the people.
So, David, based on Austin, if you want to jump in and respond to him, realistically, what he's talking about is a lot of these measures that Governor Gavin Newsom is putting in place sound like they're working. I mean, it sounds like what he's mandating is actually taking effect in other countries based on the population taking it serious enough. We're just questioning his tactics or what we've seen, his visibility of him being out without a mask on. So is he really talking out of both sides, or are these measures actually working?
It can be both. It's not an either or situation. I think Austin quite succinctly got to really the crux of the issue. The corruption or, the potential hypocrisy of politicians is irrelevant to whether or not these things work. Okay, whether or not the measures work. Now, what's really important, though, is we are not doing enough measures here. We have not had a federal government that has acted with enough intention or purpose in trying to combat COVID-19. And so therefore, every state is hopelessly outmatched and reduced to simply trying to shut down businesses, shut down places where people may congregate, and asking people not to do certain things. That's like trying to solve climate change by asking people to recycle. Okay, it's not going to work. Personal responsibility will not solve this. We do need contact tracing. Absolutely. We do need robust testing as fast as possible, not where people are waiting a week and therefore accidentally infecting other people unintentionally while waiting for their results back. Okay, so Newsom's hypocrisy on this, I honestly think there's very few people who are 100% on this, but it's very bad. As a public official, you should stand in line and he should be properly roasted for that. But simultaneously, we should be doing, if anything, more. All right, we don't have enough going on. And yes, what's happening with the sheriffs, and we're hitting a breaking point as far as public will to do these half measures, which can help. They absolutely do help. And my friends who are nurses and doctors pray that all of us continue to do them, right? But we need more to actually get ahead of and get coronavirus under control. And Austin, I think, laid out his experience in Korea very clearly, and we need to try and imitate something like that.
Angela, as a libertarian, how do you respond to David and Austin?
Well, I think we all agree that government corruption is a problem. The way I see it is that it's mandates for thee, but not for me. That's how our governors are viewing it. And I'm actually glad that they're being hypocrites about it, because it shows that they don't believe their own orders. And that's why sheriffs are refusing to comply, because this veil, the curtain is dropping, and people are really seeing now that 9-10 months into mask mandates, apparently it hasn't caused enough of an issue. It hasn't helped enough, because we're seeing the problem increase. It seems to be increasing. Coronavirus spikes, epidemics, whatever you want to call it, it's increasing all over the world around the same time, regardless of what sort of influence mandates and lockdowns have been having. So, I'm glad that we're seeing the hypocrisy come to light, and I hope that it's going to cause more meaningful change. And I appreciate the sheriffs in Los Angeles, Orange County, Riverside, and Sacramento.
So to pull a little bit more out of you there, you said you want to see a little bit more change. What does that mean? What do you mean by you want to see more change?
I want to see more freedom. I want to see people be able to make their own choices as individuals. I appreciate that a lot of restaurants in California are opening back up and defying the lockdown. I would like to see that trend continue. I would like to see other county sheriffs say that they are not going to enforce orders or harass individuals or businesses.
This boils down to, I feel like, what is often a libertarian position, which is, I don't care how many people die, whatever I think freedom entails needs to be protected. And so right now we know for a fact that the last time we had a surge, we put these measures into place, and we put them in very strongly, and people were more worried and I think behaved better then, and it brought things under control. Already we have seen with the new measures that it is at least slowing this like third wave. Certain instances of hypocrisy or not following something perfectly, it's like that does not mean that the people don't believe that it works. Something like the GOP senators from Georgia who were selling their stocks while telling the public that coronavirus was nothing to worry about and therefore profiting off of it, that is absolutely the kind of hypocrisy that shows that they were inconsistent with their beliefs and what they were saying publicly. Whereas if somebody were to watch me all the time, I believe in it very much. But if somebody were to catch me in a certain situation, I may not have my mask. I may forget about it. I may be comfortable with certain people. And it's impossible to be 100% pure as an individual following these mandates. Doesn't mean that I don't completely believe in it. Doesn't mean that Newsom doesn't believe in it. And our belief is honestly irrelevant. It works and it will save lives. Once again, remember, we have a vaccine. We have several vaccines that are coming to market. Every life we save now is very likely somebody that will not die from coronavirus.
The other side would say, so if I had the Republicans here, a Republican would use your own words against you. A Republican would say the liberals are always talking about it's my body, it's my choice when it comes to a number of different issues. So from their perspective, they would say it's my body, it's my choice on a mask mandate.
Yes, I mean, they often absolutely say that, and it's kind of a nonsensical argument simply because this is about achieving a win against a pandemic, which doesn't operate on the concept of one-to-one interactions. Okay, this is all about being able to get people to exercise the smallest amount of restraint in a lot of cases. Now, of course, with businesses and with people losing their livelihoods, like there are going to be people who are disobeying this, and I can't fault them when the government's not stepping up and providing assistance to let people not work. Okay, if we're saying that the government, that people can't work, that people can't be going out in public, we need to make that happen for them. If we're saying lives are on the line, then we need to be giving people more money than the $1,200 check for some people, what was that now, 6 months ago? Yeah. So it's an absolutely difficult situation, but like trite statements like, oh, this is my freedom, my body, my freedom. It's like, no, hundreds of thousands have died. Hundreds of thousands more are going to die if we don't get this under control. But if we can get this under control for just 6 more months, we can suddenly have a vaccine. We can have hundreds of thousands of people who we would have lost still here.
Exactly.
And we have the money, we have the ability.
So to that point, though, Austin, it sounds like you very much disagreed with Angela, especially when she was speaking. You were shaking your head that from a Green Party perspective, that the individual doesn't have the wherewithal, whereas the government mandates are going to help subside the pandemic. So from a Green Party perspective, are you siding with big government or are you siding with the individual?
There has to be a healthy medium. we've seen countries such as the People's Republic of China and Vietnam. Those countries have defeated coronavirus and they didn't need a vaccine. Their government took the forefront in the coronavirus fight. Vietnam, a country that has suffered under American imperialism, currently still inundated with Agent Orange, a country that has been sanctioned and bombed to hell and back, has done better than the world's greatest, most richest country when fighting a pandemic. How did they do this? They took early, immediate action. People's Republic of China had no early first action. People in China, Wuhan, where the first cases of coronavirus were reported, going back to parties. Students are going back to university. We have bars and clubs open in Wuhan, people in China walking around, no mask. Most of the imported cases in Vietnam, most of the cases now in Vietnam and the People's Republic of China are imported from Europe and North America. So we have seen the US government ultimately fall face first on this issue, and it completely shows that they don't care about the will and the health of the people. We see all these chickens coming home to roost under the Donald Trump administration, whether it be violence, whether it be failed policies, whether it be Muslim bans. And this is just another layer of icing on the cake. Obviously, individual responsibility is doing absolutely nothing to curb the coronavirus pandemic. We see record numbers. Pearl Harbor was just, a day or two ago, and there were more people that died in the coronavirus pandemic on that day than died in the attack on Pearl Harbor. We have seen the government completely abandon hospitals, doctors wearing trash bags, when in the richest country in the world, that should not be happening. We have plenty of abandoned factories in Cleveland, Youngstown, Lordstown, Northeastern Ohio, that could be repurposed to building and creating masks and all those other types of stuff for people. But it just hasn't done it. And we're on almost month 10 of the first confirmed case in the United States. And
Angela, you've got two individuals right now. I'm hearing that David on his end is talking about California doing a wonderful job curbing it, wants to add in more regulations to really put this thing under control. Austin, from what I'm understanding, he's citing examples in Vietnam and China, where both of them have looked to get this under control through government-led action. From a libertarian standpoint, if I have other libertarians watching us right now, is what they're saying going to make an effect long term?
There's no scientific consensus on this, by the way. The scientific community is split. So I would reject the premise of a lot of arguments saying that mask mandates and lockdowns are effective. There are plenty of things that you can look up on the internet. The Great Barrington Declaration is just the tip of the iceberg. As far as libertarians wanting to kill people and commit mass murder, that's deeply offensive. As someone who opposes the welfare warfare state dropping bombs on the Middle East, certainly which Joe Biden was a big part of and is instrumental of, I oppose the drug war, which has caused needless deaths and suffering across the United States and abroad, if you want to consider its foreign policy implications. I absolutely oppose the Biden-Obama administration and the Trump administration's border policies, which have also caused needless deaths and suffering around the border. Libertarians are very pro individual freedom, and we care very much about people, and we want to see them live their lives to the fullest extent of happiness and prosperity possible. We care very much.
So to get a little bit more out of you on your point, right? So if we're looking at California versus Florida, I'm here in Florida, we have very little regulation, if any at all. Most of it's really coming down to individual businesses who are requiring you to wear a mask. There's no other mask mandates. Disney World is open here. Universal Orlando is open here. And in California, it's not. So we look at two sides of the spectrum. And we've even seen other studies from Sweden, from Switzerland, from other nations around the world that have far lower death rates at this point in time. They have seen an uptick, which is information that we'll link in the description below. So does it prove your point that the individuals will have a herd immunity at one point?
I don't know if that proves my point. I think that it's possible to prove almost any point if you go and cherry pick the data that is going to conform to your worldview. And so, you know, people can do research all day long, but I do think this is also a philosophical argument. I support individuals. I don't like that the suicide rate has skyrocketed. I don't like that people are filing bankruptcy, that LGBT people are having to move home with parents who don't approve of their lifestyle, and it's causing them to be depressed and think about committing suicide. I don't appreciate that domestic violence rates are up because women are trapped at home with abusive spouses. I believe that if we want to save lives, we need to end the lockdowns, let people practice individual responsibility.
30 seconds, David. Last response.
People aren't going back to their parents' home or to other places because the government is forcing them to. People are scared. Okay, that's why they're not going to stores. People are scared. That's why the economy is tanking. People are scared, and they're rightfully scared because we've already lost almost 300,000 Americans, right? And yes, the toll is terrible, but what's unfortunate is we've only had half measures so far. We have not actually attacked the crisis that we're facing in any sort of meaningful way. Hopefully, with the Biden presidency, we'll be able to actually get support to all of the states for a more robust response. And hopefully people will actually adopt it and accept it as well. And we can save hundreds of thousands of more lives.
Great. Excellent.